Climate change is one of the most important problems that we face today as a species. It eats you up inside knowing that our only planet, the only place where we can live, is constantly, rapidly dying, and there's nothing I can do about it. See, this is our planet. It's beautiful. It's home to almost 8 billion people. That is way too many people. See, as more people get on the planet, more resources are used. Because we all wear clothes, we all eat food, we all make garbage, we all make waste, we all use electricity. Or most of us do, at least. If we don't do something about climate change, the sea levels by 2050, only 30 years from now, are going to rise 19 inches. That doesn't sound like a lot, only 19 inches, that's like what, 1.5-ish? But you can see how far the distance is from the beach to here. See, when the water warms up, the ice melts. The ice melts, creating more water, which raises the sea level. When water warms up, the algae, which is the #1 primary source of food for coral, leaves them, and so it turns white. This is referred to as bleaching. When coral bleaches, it loses its primary source of food and often dies. It's very weakened and it's very prone to disease and illnesses. If we don't do anything about greenhouse gases, or how much we emit of them, the planet's gonna warm up. And if the planet warms up, the water warms up. The water warms up, the coral dies, and we have way less land to work with because all of it's going underwater. The 4 major producers of greenhouse gases are factories, livestock apparently, deforestation such as fires, and just deforestation. See, when we need to cut down, we cut down rainforests for more room to do stuff. Mostly, the Amazon rainforest is cut down for room for cattle, which just produces more greenhouse gas. And when we burn the forest, that creates more carbon dioxide, which is greenhouse gas. When we burn the trees, what do plants do? Photosynthesize. They take in oxygen, or they take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. That's good for us. We breathe oxygen, release carbon dioxide. When we burn them, we release, or cut them down, we release all that carbon dioxide back up into the atmosphere. And when we burn it, it's even worse, because it's also just releasing more carbon dioxide. The Amazon rainforest is often referred to as the lungs of the planet, because it produces up to 20% of all of our oxygen. See, the European Union finally is taking large steps towards climate change, or so they thought. To save the environment, the European Union decided to add fuel quotas to all their gasoline that goes in cars and airplanes and buses, etc. 10% of all their fuel is palm oil. The quotas are suspected also to rise to 15% by the end of 2025. See, palm oil is used in everything from fuel to cosmetics to the food we eat. Palm oil is really cheap, so it's really cheap to produce. Indonesia is the world's leading palm oil producer. Indonesia is an archipelago off the Indian coast. See, what happens in Indonesia, they burn down the rainforest, as I mentioned earlier, for more room for palm oil monocultures. As more palm oil is needed because of the European Union fuel quotas, more and more forest is being cut down. This whole island, Indonesian island, was rainforest. But as you can see, by 2010, over half of it's gone. And by 2020, even more of it's going to be gone. This is really bad because not only are we losing a lot of oxygen, but this is the people's land. Many fuel companies bribe the government and pay the government for land that isn't even theirs. It's their citizens' land. And they go in and cut it down. People also burn the trees illegally to make land for monoculture. This is back a couple years ago. The fires got so bad raging across the Indonesian archipelago that, I'll butcher this, Kalimantan, the Indonesian part of Borneo, was the air quality was 3,000% above the legal safety rating, the legal safety amount. Thousands of people were harmed, and infants suffered permanent brain damage from all the chemicals released in the air. An area about the size of Switzerland, just ever since the European Union decided to save the environment by issuing these fuel quotas, an area the size of Switzerland was cut down worldwide for palm oil monocultures. This is just one little example of someone or a group of people trying to confront climate change and just causing more problems. This is only just one example of it causing more problems. See, I'm going to use another example real quick. Tesla. We're all familiar with the leading electric car brand. See, people buy Teslas and replace their current, pretty much usable, almost new cars. And they think they're doing good for the environment, but they're just throwing away a car for a new car that's a little better. Because when you produce cars, they still have to go through the same manufacturing process. They still use as I go back to this slide, they still are produced in factories and produce a lot of greenhouse gases just in their manufacturing. And it's just if you switch cars every like say 5 years, you're using more and more and more when you don't need it. Those are just two basic examples of how we as a race are incorrectly confronting climate change. We need to acknowledge climate change as a species, not just as independent countries, and find a way to fix this problem, or else we might even find our grandkids could find half of this earth uninhabitable. And as more areas get uninhabitable, the massive population has to get into a smaller area. And then the smaller area increases, like say cities, more greenhouse gases, because you have all the cars and all the sun going on the concrete, and then it reflects back up because concrete isn't really good at absorbing heat. If we don't acknowledge this soon, if our generation doesn't fix this problem or take major steps to solving it, we're just hurting our children's futures. Could you imagine not being able to see glaciers? Could you imagine not knowing what a glacier is? When you learn about, let's say, the Titanic, when our kids learn about the Titanic in school, they're not going to know what an iceberg is if we don't do something about climate change. Thank you.